Okay, our first question goes to the Minister this afternoon. Honorable Minister, what do you see as the role of startups in developing the economy of Trinidad and Tobago? And how do you see our tertiary and training skill sector helping young persons to become involved in startups in this country?
Okay, first of all, let me thank you very much. Um, while the question is there in writing, I will probably expand a little more. Let me just indicate, in terms of the salutations, Mr. Manchoon, my fellow panelists, members of the board, special invited guests, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen. While we could answer this question in terms of startups and the importance of startups in the context of what we teach and what we learn, and therefore startups, in my view, is one of the learning outcomes. The tertiary sector is the closest sector, in my view, to the workforce. And if you ask persons why they go to school or why they go to university, it is obviously among the reasons you will get will be that we want to find a good job. We want to find something that will be purposeful. And therefore, when you look at startups, in the United States of America, annually, new businesses amount to approximately 3 million jobs every year. As a matter of fact, universities are in the forefront of startups. The University of Utah, for example, since 2012 and before that for the 2 years preceding, has been first in the line of universities which has been delivering business startups. But what do startups do for a university like Trinidad and Tobago? Startups, in my view, will of course ensure that we connect with the community. It will also ensure that we practice what we teach, and therefore will be in the business of creating jobs, and good jobs at that. But very importantly as well, in my view, it is going to promote the brand of the University of Trinidad and Tobago. I want to ask you to join with me in congratulating UTT and this project as a legacy 10th anniversary project. As we continue, I wish I would have some more time, but let me give you, there's a case study I would like to give you that in a sense will concretize what this is all about. In Chile, in 2012, there was a businessman by the name of Nicholas Shea, S-H-E-A. And what he did is that he offered 40,000 US dollars and a visa, a one-year visa, to anyone who will want to come into Chile to promote their business idea. He got over 900 such persons, entrepreneurs, coming from 37 countries in the world. The rest, as we say, is history. As we promote this innovative project, as we promote this new initiative, I want to ask UTT and Mr. Manchoon particularly, as he leads UTT, to ensure that we take this opportunity of this incubator model. Many of you and all of us will recall that when we look at an incubator is really an early period of birth and nurturing. It really talks about growth and development, and if I may say so, guided growth and development. And therefore, I want to ask the University of Trinidad and Tobago, as indeed it will come back to me to say a few words hopefully, that not only should we look at this facility today that we are launching, and I'm hoping that we'll be able to package what we are doing today for public consumption on the media waves of Trinidad and Tobago, but that we create this backward linkage, because indeed we are creating the forward linkage. The forward linkage is really, as we are today, what are the businesses that are going to evolve from this education and training that we have, from this entrepreneurial university. But I want to ask Mr. Manchoon to make sure that these successful entrepreneurs are also mentors to workforce, to workplace, and to students in their schools, and I'm not talking only here about the tertiary schools, I'm talking here about the secondary schools, about the primary schools, and believe it or not, the early childhood centers. We had Professor Sugata Mitra recently from Newcastle University, and he was talking about the school in the cloud. And he was saying that in the United Kingdom, now as we speak, they are promoting the training of programmers at preschool, and they're succeeding at that as well. Learning, in my view, has no boundaries, and it has no defined operating space. I want to also tell you that how I see this opportunity is really like a hub and spoke relationship. But let me, as I pass on the microphone to my other colleagues, indicate two initiatives I would like to leave you with. Number one, we have taken the on-the-job training program and really have it into OJT sectoral, whether it is medical, environment, agriculture, digital, with Francis and Microsoft. And I'd like to ensure that we take it a next step after today, and that is OJT entrepreneurship. I want to also advise that coming out of this initiative and led by the University of Trinidad and Tobago, I want to ask UTT to lead the way in really developing and spearheading an incubator council in Trinidad and Tobago, particularly among the tertiary level institutions. Currently, in fact, from 2010, when I became minister, we had 42% participation rate in the tertiary sector. And as the end of December 2013, we are now at 65.23% participation rate in the tertiary sector. So I want to just indicate, in answer to the question, firstly, I see startups as being critically important in terms of fulfilling the mandate and the objectives of an entrepreneurial university. But I also want to say that it should not be limited only to UTT and its boundaries. And secondly, in terms of the development of our young people are in the pursuit of opportunities. But in pursuing opportunities, we must provide them with access. What we are doing here and outside is providing them with access. I also want to ask the University of Trinidad and Tobago that no matter how small it will be or can be, subsequent to today's launch, at every campus, if possible, of the University of Trinidad and Tobago, we should have a dedicated space available for business incubator, like we'll be doing here today. And at every new campus, we should ensure that in the design of that campus, we should have such deliberate spaces to ensure that what we are teaching and learning will be practiced for enhanced opportunities. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Mr. Manchoon, our Honorable Minister has given UTT a mandate and is also part of our vision to become an entrepreneurial university. Can you share with us this afternoon what the UTT's vision for driving this entrepreneurial process, at least especially with startups in this economy?
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chairperson. Let me say good evening to everybody, and to say how happy I am as Chairman of the Board of Governors that this day has arrived. I want to congratulate the President and Navin and Inshan and Vijay and the entire team, everybody who has been involved in bringing this idea to fruition. When Honorable Minister invited me to assume the chairmanship of UTT 3 years ago, I remember sitting down with then, at that time, a senior ranking officer of the university, and he happened to be sitting down beneath a framed copy of the mission statement of the university. And in talking to him, I began to read it out to him, which says that the mission of UTT is to be an entrepreneurial university and to spawn entrepreneurs to generate new business opportunities for the expansion of the economy and so on. And as I literally read it out word for him, he said to me, he said, you know, now that you are reading it out, that seems to make a lot of sense. I was heartened by that, but I was a little bit confused as well. But I began to understand that in the background of the university, while the mission of the university was framed towards entrepreneurship, there really was very little done in terms of the organizational infrastructure of the university to make that happen. And I'll say when we looked at the organizational infrastructure, UTT did not have anyone at the level of vice president who was responsible for driving entrepreneurship, or I dare say driving business development and marketing. And that is how Navin came to be appointed when that particular unit was created, because we felt if this was the mission of the university, and because of some of the work I have done, I feel passionate about this idea of mission statement, because I find many organizations have a mission statement. It's plastered up on the wall somewhere, and they really go about their lives without any reference to it. And sometimes you ask people, and they say, yeah, we have a mission, it's somewhere around here. Let me go and dig it out from the files or something like that. They really don't know. Now, I believe that's a waste of time. I believe the mission statement is the articulation of the core raison d'etre of the university, what the university is all about. And therefore, I felt if we were going to retain that mission, we had to give it flesh. We had to give it substance. We had to put in place the infrastructure. So a lot of work took place recruiting Navin and Inshan. Professor Bhattacharya was one of those who came on board as a professor of entrepreneurship. Minister mentioned the University of Utah. We actually paid a visit to the University of Utah and looked at what an entrepreneurial university was doing, how it was structured, what were the positions that it had in place, and so on. When we went to India, we visited India's Entrepreneurial Development Institute, and we looked at what they were doing as well. So we looked at a number of different international facilities. To come back with where I see it, as I say, apart from being the mission of the university, as I began to research it and to think about it, and incidentally, a couple of other things happened at that time. That was just about the time that Steve Jobs passed away. And I used the opportunity as being new to the university. I challenged them for us to have a forum down at Napa on the death of Steve Jobs and the role that he had played in entrepreneurship, in technology, in really one man changing the entire world. And there were some criticisms in the national media and so on that I think even recently, perhaps in the budget debate from the opposition and so on, what UTT have involved in that? What UTT doing with honoring as a local university, honoring Steve Jobs? But that was meant to spark the conversation within UTT. We followed up that and we spoke about Professor Clayton Christensen's work on disruptive technologies and innovation, and challenged, and at that time the hierarchy of the university held a one-day session where they looked at some videos and they had some conversations. And I'm saying that to say that today is the culmination of a journey and a long series of steps and activities that have been taking place. And I recall coming down to this place as well, and it was far removed from what we saw here, and continuing to talk to Inshan and to Navin at every board meeting. I would ask, what's happening in this area? What's happening in this area? We are in the midst of the budget debate and probably coming to the end of the debate in the lower house, and the Senate will start in a while. And listening to the comments on the national budget, there are several issues to which the question of the university's incubation activities would speak. Of course, we would know one of the recurring themes for several years has been the diversification of the economy. I see the university getting involved in incubation activities and entrepreneurial activities and helping to generate new businesses like animation, like in fashion, and in many of the areas that we are involved in, to be part of this entrepreneurial diversification. I recall as well the first day that I walked in to an office at Minister's, to a meeting at Minister's office with all of the chairmen being chaired by Minister. And I was new to the tertiary sector at the time in this capacity. It struck me that sitting down in that room with the heads of all of these important institutions, which could really constitute a think tank for the solutions to our economic problems and indeed some of our wider national problems. And I've seen Honorable Minister lead the agencies under his jurisdiction in that direction, because not only UTT, but all of the agencies have launched significant initiatives. A few minutes ago, I passed at Eugene and I took a look at a drilling school, probably up in the breeze there. There's also the question of the unemployed graduate and people saying, questioning the gate policy and the trust in tertiary education and asking, we are educating all of these people, but where are they going to get jobs? And we have to be honest, if we think about it rationally, where do jobs come from? Robert is an entrepreneur and he has a business. He doesn't have a number of vacancies just sitting down there waiting to employ people who graduate when graduation time comes around. The only way he's going to employ people is if his business grows, is if he is selling more, he is breaking into new markets, and therefore he's required to employ new people, new engineers and production people in the factory and so on, and therefore he goes out to the market. Jobs don't fall from the sky. And we have got to be realistic that jobs are not just sitting down there. One of the things that we picked up when we were in India is that this has to be part of a national initiative from childhood. And there is a book that Navin had introduced around that time called The Common Jobs War. And one of the points the author of that book made, which is the chairman of the Gallup organization, Jim Clifton, is that entrepreneurship begins at the elementary school level. And I'm happy to know that I believe CXC has introduced something on entrepreneurship, if not at the elementary school level, at the secondary school level. But I see us as being part of that whole wave. So we have to cultivate the mindset of tertiary level graduates who will not only come out to look for a job, and there will be people who will go into employment, but people who have the mindset and who have the skills to go into their own businesses, and hence the reason for this incubator and what we will continue to do. Thank you.